Hi everyone, I'm back with the next tutorial on the stroller tote bag. In the last one we were able to get our pockets sewn on. In this one we're going to add our trim, add our handles, and hopefully get the bag all finished up. I've done the next step on one side already to save us time. But what you're going to do first with your two trim pieces, you're going to take them to your iron and you're going to fold them in half lengthwise and iron them directly in half so that you end up with a long strip. And then we're going to pin that to the edge sides of our pockets. On this side, I measured where my pocket sat, and it ended up being just a little over 1.5 inches. And so then I just lined this strip up at the same spot. What we're going to do now is stitch along this raw edge, the part that is open, not the folded edge. We're going to sew 1/4 inch all the way down, and then we will come back and do the next step. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Zoom in some. Okay, so now we need to take out all of our pins. And now you're going to take your bag over to your ironing board and you're going to iron this flat in the opposite direction so that you're now covering the seam you just made. So go ahead and do that and then I'll come back. Alright, now that I have that ironed over, I am going to take my pins and pin this in place so that it doesn't move on me. Okay, now we're going to head back to the sewing machine, and this time we are going to top stitch, and that means to sew really close to the edge, and we're going to top stitch on both the outside and the inside of this strap. So let's go ahead and move back over to the sewing machine. Now I'm going to do the other side, and you can remove your pins as you go if you would like. It's probably a good idea. Okay, so now you should have both of your strips sewn onto the sides of your bags. I'm just going to remove these pins real quick. And you will notice that you have a tail on both sides. So what you're going to do is flip it to the back side. And you can either use scissors or you can use your rotary cutter. I'm just going to go ahead and use my scissors because it's easier. And you're just going to trim that off even with the bag. And that can just get tossed in the garbage. Now, let's trim off some of these threads so they're not in our way later. Alright, now the next thing we're going to do is we need to get our webbing. And you're going to cut the following pieces. You should end up with 8 pieces. You're going to have 4 pieces that are cut to 3 inches long. So 4 at 3 inches. Then you need 2 at 12 inches. And 2 that are 16 inches. And these are going to make the loops, the handle, and the handles for the bag. Now with the webbing, it will fray. The ends will start to unravel and the straps can fall off of your bag when you don't want them to. So you can either get fray check from the fabric store and apply that to the ends, or I just took my kitchen lighter and I just frayed the ends a little, or melted the ends a little bit so that they will no longer fray. So now is when we're going to start using our accessories. You're going to take your D-rings and these 4 3-inch strips that you have, you're going to thread them through your D-rings so that you have them all through. And we are going to attach these to the top of our bag, the part with the side with the pockets. Let's go ahead and get these out of our way. You're going to attach them so that the open ends are even with the top of your bag and lined up with your trims. And go ahead and pin those in place. And then we're going to take the 12-inch piece and it is going to be placed 5 1/4 inches from the edge of your bag. So line up your ruler at 5 1/4 inches, and one side of the strap is going to be pinned right there. Raw edges together. And then you want to make sure that your handle isn't twisted funny so that it makes a continuous loop. And we're going to measure in again at 5 1/4, and we're going to pin that to right here. And you can go ahead and baste these webbings, and that just means to stitch them on so that they don't move. But I'm going to, before I do that, go ahead and do the same thing to the side of the bag without the pockets. So your 2 loops with the D-rings lined up with your trim. And these D-rings have a seam in them, so you can make sure that those are on the inside of your webbing so that it looks better. I don't know if you'd ever really notice. And I'm now going to take these over to the sewing machine and baste them in place. Okay, now I'm going to remove the pins. And I'm also going to clean up any of the random threads that are hanging off the edges. I like to clean up my threads so that they're not poking out of the bag too much. And the next step, we're actually going to attach the inside of the bag to the outside of the bag. So what we want to do is get our, oops, bump to the camera, get our inside fabric. If I can find where I put it. Okay, now what you're going to want to do is take your inside fabric and line it up right sides together with the outside of your bag. And you're going to want to make sure that all of your webbing stays flat against the bag. You don't want it sticking out, otherwise it will be on the inside of your bag, and that would be bad. What we're going to do is you're going to pin the bottom and the top of the bag. And those are going to be the short edges. And you are going to stitch those together with a 1/4 inch seam. So we'll go ahead and go back over to the sewing machine. You might have a little bit of resistance when you're going over the webbing, just kind of push through it. And you're going to take this, so once you've removed your pins, you're going to take your bag to your iron, and you are going to press your seam allowances open. Once you've done that, you're going to align both of the middle seams together so that they line up all the way across the bag. And then you'll go ahead and pin this together at your seams. And then you can go ahead and pin all the way around. And you're going to want to leave an opening in your stitching so that you'll be able to turn the bag inside out. So just pick one of the sides and leave an opening. I would say maybe about 6 inches or so. Okay, so now we're going to go to the sewing machine now that I've got both sides of my bag pinned together. And you'll have the inside of your bag all on one side and the outside fabric of your bag all on the other. Because if you have that, then your bag will be in the right position right now. And we're going to stitch both of the long edges, and remember to leave that gap on one side of your bag. So we'll head over to the sewing machine. I just sewed a small section right here. Now I'm going to scoot to about 6 inches away from where I ended on that spot and sew the rest of the bag. Okay, now I'm going to switch to the other side, and on this side we can sew all the way down. We don't need to leave a gap. Okay, so now I'm going to remove all of my pins that I didn't remove while I was sewing. Now we are going to box the bottom corners of our bag so that it gives it a flat bottom so that you can set the bag down and it will stand up rather than falling over. And what you want to do is you're going to do this to both the inside portion and the outside portion. You just kind of want to pull the bag open a little bit so that you just grab the sides, and you're going to create a little triangle in the corner. And you can go ahead and pin that if you would like. And I'm going to do that to this side as well, and you want to try to keep them as even as possible. So grab the corners or the sides and pull out, and it'll make the bottom of the bag flat. And can also grab the other corner you made to make sure that you're still even. And we're going to pin this. And we're going to do that to the inside edge as well. And you're going to sew 1 inch away from the corner. So let me do this side real quick. Again, grab the sides of the fabric. This one's a little bit harder. Grab the sides of the fabric. Make your little triangle. Go ahead and pin it. And for the last one, I'm going to grab my other side to make sure I keep straight. And I'm going to go ahead and pin this. Now I'm going to go over to the sewing machine and sew 1 inch from each corner. I'm going to take my hem gauge and find where on my machine the 1 inch line is. And it looks like for me it is that one right there. Okay, so I'm going to line my corners with my 1 inch sewing line. And I'm just going to draw or sew a straight line across that corner. Now we are going to take and get your scissors, and we don't want this extra bulk inside of our bag, so you can trim off the excess, but make sure you do not cut that seam that you just sewed. Do that to all 4 corners. Okay, let's see, I've got some extra threads hanging out there. Okay, so now what we're going to do is turn our bag right side out. Let's find our opening. Mine's right here. Go ahead and reach your hand in and just start pulling carefully the bag through your opening. You don't want to accidentally pop any of your seams. Once you've got that through, this is where you're going to want your little tool, your pen, the tip of your scissors. I'm going to use this little pointy thing, and go ahead and stick your hand inside the hole that you just used to turn your bag, and you're going to push all of your little corners out so that it creates a nice edge and not have bunched up corners. And the lining. And I made my hole for turning on the outside of my bag. It probably would have been a better idea to have done that on the inside of your bag because it will hide better. So I'm going to now close up, my seam, my opening, and it would definitely have been better to have left the opening on the lining. So hopefully you'll be able to do that. We haven't gotten to this part yet. I'm just going to sew as close to the edge of the bag as I possibly can so that it won't be very noticeable. You could also hand stitch this if you were into hand stitching, which I am absolutely not. So now our bag is closed. And we are going to take and put the inside of our bag, go ahead and stuff it inside of the tote bag. And we are now going to take and make sure that you get the seam on the inside and outside so that it is even on the top, and we're going to do a top stitch around the entire top of the bag to help hold its shape. And I like to pin this so that I know that it's not, these seams are not gonna shift on me and my bag will stay in place. And I'm going to remove this part of my machine. Make it a little bit easier. And you want to make sure that your handles don't get sewn to the wrong side. You don't want them to flip over to this side. You want to make sure that they stay coming straight out of your bag. And then we'll just top stitch. And I'm starting on the back of my bag so that it's not as noticeable on the front where I've back stitched. Okay, at this point, you should have, once I removed my pins, you should have, your tote bag should be completed. The only thing we have left is to add the straps with the 4 swivel clips. And to do that, we're going to take our webbing, and in the same way that you did the D-rings, you're just going to slide the end through, and we're going to stitch. We're going to leave a 1 inch. You want it to fold over 1 inch. 1 inch, so that you have a 1 inch tail, and we're going to zigzag close to the edge of the tail. If you don't know how to use the zigzag, you could probably just do a straight stitch back and forth several times, which I am going to do actually. I'm just going to do a straight stitch. So we're going to do that to all 4, and I would make sure that whichever side on one end you have the tail, that you have the tail on the same side on the other one. So we're going to go ahead and go back over to the machine, and this will be our last step. All we need to do now is clean up the strings that we have on our straps. And then these just hook onto your D-rings. And then this will strap around your stroller and attach it. And on mine, this strap piece is really long. So when I put it around the strap of my stroller, what I did was I wrapped it a couple of times, and then I attached the swivel clip to the D-ring so that it created a smaller gap between the bag and the stroller handle. Otherwise it would have been dragging on the floor. So if you just want your strap to be shorter, you can always just make this shorter, or you could just wrap it. But that is how you make the tote bag, and I hope that you enjoyed these tutorials, and I hope that you have fun making your bag. See you later. Bye.